Hi everybody, this is Damien from Legend Life. As you know, we're all about sharing inspirational stories about people who are living their best life. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with ocean kayaker Wendy Killoran, someone who later in life transitioned from a more, what can I say, normal type of life or contemporary type of life to a life of more adventure and travel. So today, how are you going, Wendy?
I'm great today, and thank you for having me on your show today. And I'm looking forward to sharing my stories and my experiences from transitioning from being a school teacher in my former life to walking away at a fairly young age at 51 from school teaching to becoming an adventurer and sea kayaker.
Awesome. So yeah, no, you've got quite a portfolio of adventures you've been on, so we'll go talk a little bit about them later on. So to get started though, let's talk a little bit about your background. So growing up, were you always into sports and the outdoors?
Growing up, I was a daughter to a family of 5 in our family, and I had a twin sister and a younger sister and my parents, and my father was a school teacher, and we did a lot of traveling. So we did a lot of camping in the summertime, and I was always very sporty. I was always involved in team sports and athletics and track and field. And I realized also that I just loved being in the outdoors. When I was outdoors, I had this sense of just feeling really good, feeling happy. And I loved exploring. I loved visiting new places and having new experiences.
No, awesome. So basically your background kind of like was geared to leading you to a more adventurous life. So how did that all come about? So, you know, school, more adventurous, and then you obviously started your career as a teacher. So tell us a little bit about this period of your life, and then what happened next to kind of like lead you to that transition, you know, from more traditional kind of background to the more adventurous Wendy.
So everything in life brings you to where you are in the present. And so one of the first times I truly stood up for myself, because, you know, I was always, as a youth, more like a people pleaser and did things to impress others. And then I stood up to my father when he said he wanted me to, you know, take a certain direction in university. And I said, I wanted to be a geologist. And so while I was studying geology at university, I ended up working for 3 summers with the Ontario Geological Survey in Northern Ontario. And I spent my summers outdoors, and it just felt really, really adventuresome. And I was doing a lot of shoreline geology, not in a kayak, but in a canoe. And it just it opened the world to me. I realized that I didn't have to live a life that was sort of designated, you know, this is on live your life on autopilot. No, I started to question things, and I started to realize there's more to life than what I was led to believe, and that I actually had the power to choose, how do I want to live my life? And I realized I really, really enjoyed being adventuresome, and I really enjoyed being outside. And I felt an incredible sense of well-being and vitality by being outdoors in nature and by being active and just looking at all the beauty that surrounds me. I've created an incredible relationship with beauty.
Okay, so you study as a geologist, but you ended up being a teacher. So tell us, seems like you kind of put on hold a little bit that adventurous desire for a period of time.
Oh, it was, you know, I was at that point in my life still living my life on autopilot. I realized that if I wanted to live a normal life, it would be difficult to be in the bush and also, you know, for 4 or 5 months a year, and then still also be a mother and a wife and so forth. So I took a more traditional career path. I became a school teacher. I still had, you know, ample time to travel because I had my summers off. Um, but there was always this niggling. There was always this niggling that I wanted more. And so a good part of my life, I was always reading books like memoirs and autobiographies from authors where they wrote about their journeys of sailing around the world, or, you know, hiking long distance through paths like the Pacific Crest Trail and so forth. And I started imagining, why can't that be me? Why can't I do that? I want to do that. I don't want to be reading about other people's lives and other people's adventures. I want to do that.
So what was the point of time where you decided you wanted to make the shift? Because, you know, you're working as a school teacher, you're still getting your holidays, but you're not really at that adventure point. So what was the kind of catalyst that led you to kind of like make that change?
Okay, I'd like to mention 3 points. In 1989, in July 1989, I was walking a long distance trail in Devon and Cornwall in Great Britain. And I was up on a cliff and I looked down at the sea, and it looked like pencil crayons were sprawled out on the sea, these colorful, long, thin shapes. And they were sea kayaks. And it was a moment that I see the image in my mind so clearly, where I think, wow, I had never seen that before. And it just grabbed my attention. And then about half a year later, in December of 1989, I was camped in the Florida Everglades. And at that point, I was 5 months pregnant, and I was looking at a sunset, and there were silhouetted palm trees. There were diving pelicans, and the sky was a fiery orange. And all of a sudden, in silence, paddling into the sunset, was a sea kayaker. And it was an epiphany. I realized in that moment that that was something that I needed to do in my life. I needed to do that. It was like a message from God that this is what you need to do. And then I had, gotten a kayak. I'd gotten slowly involved in kayaking. I'd gone a couple times with some tour groups, but it wasn't until 2006 when I told my husband at the time that I wanted to kayak around Newfoundland. And he looked at me, he said, "Well, that's a big one, right?" I said, "Yeah, that's pretty big." And I was 45 at the time. And he said, "Well, when you come home, you can come home to a divorce." And I realized, you know what? If I'm meant to go around Newfoundland, I will then, go through with living the life that really resonates, because I did not want to live a life anymore with regrets, where I felt that I was only getting snippets of what I truly wanted to feel and experience in my lifetime. And so I paddled solo around Newfoundland in 2006. I became the first woman on the planet to do it. And after that, I realized I am courageous. I am so much stronger than anyone made me believe that I am. I am capable. And I am the potential for what we can do with our lives is almost limitless, as long as we believe in our dreams. And with all my heart and soul, I believed in myself, and I envisioned myself completing that journey. I did. And it's changed my life. I've walked away from teaching. I've walked away from that marriage, and I'm an adventurer.
Brilliant. So what other adventures have you undertaken?
Well, before I did the Newfoundland adventure, I did my first ever solo expedition. So in 2005, I paddled solo around Prince Edward Island, which is Canada's smallest province. And I paddled completely around that. So I have I love geographical extremes. So I can say I paddled around an entire province in Canada.
Yeah.
And since then, I've done numerous solo adventures. I paddled about halfway around Nova Scotia in Canada. And then I've also taken some of my adventures abroad. I paddled 90% around Sardinia. And in November, I was caught by the November gales. So that journey was cut short slightly. I've paddled for 3 months down the length of the Sea of Cortez in Baja, Mexico. In 2018, so by now I was like 57 years old, I paddled for 5 months on Canada's Great Lakes. And I paddled all the way around the world's largest freshwater lake, which is Lake Superior, and about halfway around Lake Huron during that journey. Last summer, I paddled during, the first summer of COVID. I paddled north shore of the St. Lawrence River in Quebec, all the way to the Labrador border, followed by a circumnavigation of the Georgian Bay in Lake Huron. And I've also done things like, the 10th anniversary paddle from Newfoundland, because Newfoundland I did in 2006. So in 2016, I actually paddled around the largest island on the west coast of Canada, which is Vancouver Island, which is now my home, because Newfoundland is the largest island on the east coast of Canada. So I've explored a lot of Canada by sea kayak.
Yeah, no, brilliant.
Yeah.
So what is it about these expeditions that attracts you?
It's a different way of being. For me, it resonates with everything that I'm meant to experience in life. I've pared down my life so that I live a very simple, frugal life. I realize now how little I need to be happy, how little I need to feel empowered. And when I do these journeys solo, a lot of people don't get to experience what it really feels like to live in true solitude. There are times where I simply do not have contact with humanity, and I'm immersed deeply in nature. And I get to spend time with myself. I get to know who I am. I get to really reflect on my life, where I've been, where I am, where I want to go. I get to truly start to question every life, the beliefs that I was taught and programmed to believe. Do they still resonate, or do I need to change them? So I've made huge quantum change in my life. I had walked away from a marriage that had run its course. I'd walked away from a career that no longer resonated because I felt like I was a free spirit, yet I felt like I was in many ways, indoctrinating children. And I really, really love being in a dynamic environment. I love being on wide open, expansive bodies of water, because to me, being on an expansive body of water is synonymous to the way I want my life to feel. I want to feel that my life is expansive. And I want to, because I did realize when I paddled around Newfoundland in 2006 that the greater the risk, the greater the reward. So if we are unwilling to step outside of our comfort zone, nothing will ever change. You'll never have any concept of the potential that lives within your heart. You'll never have any idea of truly how expansive life can feel. I mean, when I was in Newfoundland at one point, I was on swells of water that I don't know what the amplitude was. Was it 25 meters? Was it 100 meters? And they might have been like a kilometer apart, and the whole world went askew. And of course, I felt the fear of, well, how will I come to shore? And I did. I went into a harbor and whipped around, and I came safely to shore. And your life changes when you are not living on autopilot, when you're no longer completely just doing what is expected of you, but when you create a life that you start to feel is more in alignment with what resonates in your soul. And I think, we originally, humankind, we lived close to the land. And today's modern society, there's a disconnect from being close to nature. And I think most of us feel truly alive when we are connected strongly and immersed deeply in nature, which is a very healing environment, and which is a very dynamic environment. And it's an environment where, if you sit still, or if you participate and engage in this environment, there's so much you can learn.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So it's clear you're a person who believes a lot in getting out of your comfort zone. So, so what would you say to others about, why you need to get out of your comfort zone? How can they get out of their comfort zone, and what's possible for them? Because as you said, the link between comfort zone and your potential, they're kind of intricately kind of connected, aren't they? So unless you push yourself out, you won't discover what's possible or what you can do. So maybe you can kind of elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yes. To me, the magic in life happens when you go into the deep, mysterious unknown. You discover truly how amazing life can be, and that there's more to life than truly meets the eye. I was never raised as a religious person, but through my immersion in nature, I did become deeply spiritual, and I had experiences that allowed for me to open to that. And I feel that through spending a lot of time alone on the ocean, I have changed. I have become a gentler person. I've become a more open person. I've become a more expansive person. I've become a kinder person. I've become a more conscious and aware person. But this didn't just instantly happen. My whole life led to this. I mean, I did car camping as a child, so I became comfortable sleeping in a tent. I did geology in my university days, and so I got used to spending extended times in the wilderness. Even though it wasn't alone, I was with other people, but I was walking compass lines in the bush, and I was doing geology along unknown shoreline in a canoe. And then I started doing sea kayak tours with as a paying client with tour groups. And I really, would get to see how people do this lifestyle of expedition sea kayaking. And I realized I could do this on my own. I didn't need to, I eventually, and you can start small. You can start by doing these experiences with other people and just go away for a day or two. But eventually, I set big goals for myself. I mean, some of the trips I've done are like 3,000 kilometers or more in a kayak. And so I create what I call incremental daily goals. And when you start to put together the small increments of progress, and you do that over an extended period of time, before you know it, you've made an accomplishment that you can truly be proud of. And that is life-changing. It's life-changing to spend time alone, being fully accountable for your choices, fully accountable for everything that's in your existence at that time. And I have to say, it's empowering. You get to know who you are. And in this time of, the pandemic, these life skills have created a sense of courage in me and resilience and deep inner knowing of who I am and what my truth is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically the message is, start small, work your way up, constantly kind of pushing yourself further and further out. And then the end result is that you're going to get closer to discovering who you are authentically as a person. And that's what you should be really aspiring for, because that's when you're going to be happy, isn't it? When you really understand who you are.
Oh, yeah. There's no going back. In fact, my daughter once, when she was about 12 years old, because I get my high from being out in nature. And she had once said to me, Mom, once you've been there, you can never go back. So once you've experienced a certain level of being, you can't go back to the old self that you were. We are always growing. We are always expanding. And to me, that is the journey of life, is to keep continuing to become a better version of ourselves and a more authentic, true version of who we are meant to be. And for me, kayaking has deeply assisted in that journey.
Yeah. So, well, you're obviously very passionate and, enthusiastic about life. And I think that's because you are living authentically. So I think where you said you can't go back, or you can go back, but the net result is you're not going to feel happy about life, because you actually know what's possible and what you could feel if you're actually doing what you really like. So most people, when they're not satisfied, unfulfilled, perhaps it's because they're not actually out there doing what they could be doing, or living the kind of life that actually resonates with them.
Right. I always say, live the life you love and love the life you live. And,
Yeah.
it's a great mantra to live by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
So, so you're clearly someone who is a big believer in living passionately and purposefully. So what would you say to someone, maybe who's in a similar situation as you, listening in now, who's feeling unfulfilled, unsatisfied by their life, but is too scared or feels there's too many kind of like barriers that are kind of like holding them back from actually going off and, living what they believe is their passion. What would you say to that person?
Well, it's good to have a close knit group of people that you know that you can confide in, people that you can speak your truth to, people that you feel are truly there for you to support you, and to really start to question, what is it that you want from your life? What is it that makes you smile? What brings you joy? For some people it's music, other people it's writing, other people it's, outdoor adventure. It's it could be art. There's so many things that can deeply resonate in your soul. And to me, it's important to not let the song in your heart die unsung. So I think for life to really open up, we have to face our fears. And that's going to take courage. We're going to have to question, what is it that I'm afraid to do to move on to that level? For me, for many, many years, I was afraid to go do solo kayak journeys as a woman on the sea by myself, not because of what I would find on the ocean. I was afraid because of what I would find on the land. I thought, well, what if some unsavory human being decided to have some unkind intentions towards me while I'm sleeping in my tent or something like that? And I thought, do I want to live my life in fear? No. I mean, anything could happen anywhere. And so I faced that fear. I decided, you know what? I'd rather live my life than put off doing what I wanted to do because, oh, well, what if? And so I've spent a lot of time sitting and thinking about what resonates in life. And, and I do a lot of blogging on Instagram. I'm Kayak Wendy. And one of the blog posts that I did was about, if you had to pick a word in your life to represent your life, what would it be? And finally, I realized for me, it's resonance. Either something resonates or it doesn't. And either we can move towards love or live in fear, because to me, fear is the opposite of love. And I love to feel alive. And what makes me feel alive? I've decided being in nature, and not just being in nature, but being truly deeply engaged in my environment, whether it's like backpacking or kayaking or simply going for even just a little walk. It's people need to say, if I want my life to change, I need to change what I'm doing. And so you have to say, what is it that needs to change? And sometimes it is, we need to face our fears. Nothing in life is easy. And so once you look at your fears and you go through those fears, everything changes. And the universe wants to bless you. So when you're grateful for what's in your life and you practice gratitude, there's more and more to be grateful for. And so I've changed a lot of my beliefs, and I've just become a more grateful person. And it's changed my life. It's like, it's worth doing.
Yeah, no, definitely. So,
Yeah.
so what's the process you go through to break down these fears or beliefs that kind of hold you back?
Well, I often will say, why am I scared of this? What's the worst that could happen? And I did realize, because a lot of us think, oh, I'm afraid to fail. But I think more of us are afraid to succeed because we are so powerful, and we're not taught to believe that. And we are so powerful that our success can be beyond what we ever thought was possible. And that scares people. I mean, I know it scared me, and it's like, but the sense of fulfillment when you tackle a fear and you no longer let it, dictate how small or how expansive your life is going to be. Once you face a fear like that, life changes. And it takes courage. All I can say is, if you want to live a life that deeply resonates, people need to find the courage to live a life that resonates. And so to me, resonance is everything. Does this resonate or does it not resonate? And our feelings will always guide us to, well, what does resonate, right? Feelings are always sort of like this little guide meter. Yeah.
So your personal driver or motivator is the need to feel that you're aligned with your authentic self, like you're aligned with what you're here to do. Is that correct? Have I got it right?
No, that's correct. I want to feel like I'm aligned with my authentic self, and then I want to bring greater meaning to that. So I love to be able to share my stories with people, and I do that through what we're doing right now, through speaking. And I also love to share my stories with people through my writing. And I also love to share my experience with people through my photography. And to me, part of being in nature and living a life aligned with who I am, it inspires creativity. And we are meant to be creative. When you're living an authentic life and you're being creative and you're being courageous, I have to tell you, you feel radiant.
Yeah.
And it's a life right. Like we're allowed to feel radiant. It's, you know, a birthright. And I think once you experience what that feels like, it's like, why wouldn't you want to feel like that? And so I know that, you know, even small little things, like when I learned how to put a kayak all by myself onto a roof rack on my sport utility car, it changed my world. I realized, you know what? That empowered me. I felt strong. And I think that's one of the things that we need to do throughout life is to create strength within ourselves, whether it's an emotional strength and a physical strength. We need to keep creating well-being and vitality in our lives if we want to feel fully alive. And part of that is creating strength. And when you feel, like I say, like you're doing what you love to do, you feel this radiance, and feels good to be radiant.
Yeah.
I remember when I was walking in Duluth when I was paddling around Lake Superior, and by then I'd been on Lake Superior probably for about a month and a half, and I'd been kayaking for maybe 2 months. And I simply was walking in the same camp clothes I'd worn for, you know, a month and a half, and a man that I didn't even recognize, he looked straight at me and he simply said to me, he said, "Natural becomes you." And I thought it was a profound compliment, because when he gave that compliment to me, I honestly felt radiant, because I just felt like I'm living life the way I feel I'm meant to live life. And I think we all need to question, well, what is that for ourselves? How do we need to live life so that we feel that we are radiant, we feel happy, we feel, you know, and we can define what is success. Success for me is just feeling that I am engaged in life, and that I'm experiencing it on a deep level, a soulful level, a connected level. And for me, that means I have connected with the divine. And I think for us to truly feel a deep connection and a resonance in life, it means also making a connection with the divine. And for me, that happened in nature.
Okay. So what's the process? Because you talked a lot about building strength. So, you know, if you're providing advice or suggestions to other people on how they can develop some personal strength, because that strength will give them the courage to go off and then, you know, live authentically. So what is that process? What, you know, how do you develop this kind of personal strength?
I think it really matters the type of people that you hang out with. The people that you spend time with and give your energy to, they can either enhance your well-being or diminish your well-being. And so if you want to keep building on your strength, you want to attract people in your life that enhance that sense of I feel strong. So for myself, I connected with kayakers who were originally in my kayaking life more experienced than me, and they taught me skills. And by learning skills, for example, I paddled in the early 2000s. I had paddled up in Iceland in the West Fjords with 6 Icelandic men, and so I got to what it was like to be a minority. But at the end of the paddling journey, we decided that we would go to a geothermally heated swimming pool. And I must have been about 42 at the time. And that's where I learned to roll a kayak. So now I had a very good skill to have for in the kayaking world, so that I now felt totally confident in my paddling ability that, oh, if I end up, tipping in my kayak, I'm also capable of righting it without having to get out and do a self re-entry.
Yeah.
And so when you start to then get a greater sense of self-esteem and self-confidence, that's going to also build your sense of strength, because you believe in yourself. The only reason why I know I can do that role, it's not because I'm a big strong person. It's all about finesse, and it's all about self-belief. So our reality truly is based on what we believe. So I always believe, when I set a goal, that I'm going to accomplish it. And I always believe that I will make the decisions necessary that are going to keep me safe and will keep me strong. So when it's time to sit still because there's a storm, I sit still. I practice patience. And when it's time to move on, the flow is good, I move on. And so and these are lessons that we can take in everyday life. Like, why practice life with a lot of resistance? Go with the flow. If things need to come, let them come. If things need to go, let them go. Yeah. So I've practiced that also with a lot of like toxic relationships. And the thing is, once you go on a journey of authenticity, where you become strong, you might trigger people who think, oh, I'm scared to do that. And all of a sudden they can't really stand being around you, because, you are becoming more authentic, and they're scared to go into that place because now they have to listen and face these fears that they've got. And they're not ready to do it, because we're all on our own unique journey. And so when we are ready, we are able to make these choices of, I'm ready to face these fears. I want to become strong. I want to change my life so that I'm a happier person, or I'm a healthier person. I got to say, like, by being active in nature on a daily basis, basically, I am filled with vitality. I am 60 years old, and I honestly feel like I've got the vitality of a 25, 30-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, you certainly look it. I mean, you're certainly very passionate. So let's go back to the self-belief. Did you always have very good self-belief or self-confidence, or is it something you've developed over time?
I think I did always have good self-belief. I was always a driven student in school. And so I excelled academically, and I excelled athletically. And I guess in a false way, I believe that by excelling and accomplishing, I then received praise from my parents. And I thought, well, that's how you earn love.
Yeah.
Which I know is absolutely false, right? So that became part of a life journey where I became a people pleaser, thinking that as long as I could excel and accomplish, now I was lovable because I'm accomplished. That's worth loving. But that's not love at all, right? And so I'm sorry, I'm having a moment here. But anyways, that's where I became, I've always had this sense of self-belief, because I was always able to excel, and I always, I guess I wanted outer validation. That's what I was trying to remember to say there. I wanted outer validation and approval. And now it doesn't matter so much anymore. When I paddled around Newfoundland, I was really proud to say I was the first woman on the planet to paddle around Newfoundland. But now it's like, I don't paddle to have, bragging rights. I paddle because this is what resonates. This is what makes me feel fully alive. This is, and the thing is, like, I will go on a lengthy kayak expedition, and then I have no problem sitting still. I might only paddle once a week and just go for, a day paddle. Yeah. And it's all because, there's balance in everything. By balancing your life, you're able to reflect on what you've done. And that too helps in building self-confidence and self-belief. And And I guess, it truly is important that you surround your people or your life with people that resonate, people who support what you want to do with your life, people who support your dreams. Because I had a lot of naysayers who said, oh, I shouldn't go out and do that. I would probably die doing that. And it's like, well, who are they to say that? It's not their life to decide what I need to do with my life. And they had no experience doing that. And so we need to find the strength, the resolve to listen to what we need to do with our lives, regardless of what others tell us. We are the experts of our own lives. And once we realize that, and we surround ourselves with people who support that, that makes a huge difference in having, self-esteem and self-confidence.
Yeah. No, very true. So basically, it's very difficult to do all of this by yourself. You kind of do need a kind of support network, don't you? Other like-minded people to kind of like, bounce off. So that, even because I'm sure you find times where you're challenged or life kind of like bundles up a whole range of kind of like obstacles and you feel a little bit demotivated even for a moment. I mean, I haven't met anyone. I wish I did. Because I can definitely say I'm not positive all the time. But if you've got other people around you, it kind of helps, doesn't it? So, just to kind of like put you back on the right path again.
Well, I feel very blessed that I'm an identical twin. She's never really kayaked, but she and I are true soulmates, and we are each other's support system. And, that's part of the journey of life too, is to not judge others for their choices and their life, so forth. And so it's important to have someone in your life that you can truly be yourself with without feeling that you need to put up any kind of barriers and walls. Because if you've got someone in your life where you can be like that with them, that's when the self-confidence truly builds, because then you feel comfortable, you feel safe to simply be yourself. And we all need that sense of safety in our life so that we can be ourselves and not feel like, oh, we have to hold back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, very true.
Yeah.
So back to that point about moments where, things seem overwhelming or feeling a little bit challenged. How do you work through that? Maintain your motivation, break through those moments where you may go through a low patch. How do you personally deal with them?
Well, it helps to have dark chocolate in the kayak.
Okay.
But when I'm on the sea and I'm feeling like, oh, this is sort of at the limit of what I'm comfortable with, I do speak mantras and affirmations. Like I always say, Wendy, you can do this. You can do this. Because the moment I start putting doubt, because, once or twice when all of a sudden I thought, oh, what am I doing out here? I immediately answered it. I said, you can do it. You can do it. Because our reality is based on what we believe.
Yeah.
And I always I do put prayers of gratitude into to God, where I always thank God for protecting me. I always feel that, if I want to overcome these challenges, sometimes it's just a matter of taking some really deep breaths. And I always, like if it's a kayaking challenge, it's been known that, I've decided to do a little U-turn and go back with the waves instead of trying to fight the waves. It's been known, because it's like, and you sit still for an extra day, and all of a sudden the next day, it's like, what you tried to battle through all of a sudden was quite possible in, a very limited amount of time.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to be embarrassed and think, oh, well, that was a failure. No, it's a lesson. Nothing in life is a failure. Everything is a lesson to teach us to grow so that we can learn from our experiences. Because to me, life is school. This is school right here. And I've signed up, I guess, for the advanced courses by going alone into the with my kayak. But that it's a choice I've made, and I feel quite comfortable because, even the younger generation, some of my daughter's friends, they would say, aren't you afraid when you're out there? It's like, actually, no, I'm not. Because, you know, if I choose to be afraid, then probably fearful things would enter into my realm of existence. And it's not to say that I haven't had moments where I think, oh, I need to, you know, I need to be careful here or whatever. But I find, because I have gone into the wilderness and spent a lot of time alone, that I have created an acute sense of awareness. I'm very mindful. I'm quite conscious of you know, my space and so forth. And you know, in a distance, I can see what's all happening. And and I don't live in fear. Like, you know, sleeping alone in a tent at night in the wilderness. I actually love the sounds of nature, like listening to water and listening to the eagles or, you know, whales breathing or whatever. And, you know, a couple times I've had where I thought, oh, there's a bear beside the tent, and I would just quickly whack the tent or whatever, and it went away. But I didn't sit there thinking, oh, like, oh, I'm so scared. Again, it's been a lifetime of getting to that point. Everything has brought me to where I am, and I do feel that um, the universe wants to provide for me, and I'm grateful for what comes into my life. And I think, you know, instead of focusing on negatives, if we focus on positives, then for the most part, our lives will be positive, because, you know, we can choose our mindset, and our mindset determines how we feel. And it's an important lesson. And a lot of lessons that I've learned through, you know, adventuring are not lessons that you learn in a classroom, you know, a contemporary classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this process of where you've kind of like now dealt with fear. So it sounds like maybe in the beginning you had some reservations, you had concerns, some uncertainty in the environment you were, because you weren't used to those environments, but you kind of like didn't let yourself dwell on it. You just kind of worked through them. And then you've kind of like now built up your fear tolerance. So now it would have to be something extreme to make you go back to that same moment again. Like most of us don't challenge ourselves. So I guess our fear radar is, you know, a lot higher than yours, because we haven't planned, we haven't kind of like made ourselves adjusted. So would you say that's the kind of process? You just kind of push yourself a little bit each time, and then you kind of like diminish the fear radar?
Yeah, that's sort of the process in life. You just keep pushing, extending boundaries, whether it's your boundary for potential, your boundary for moving through fear. Because this summer, I'll be paddling up the coast of British Columbia, and there's the Great Bear Rainforest, and there's potential for meeting grizzly bears.
Yeah.
And so that's not like, there's only a few grizzly bears on Vancouver Island where I live, and I haven't encountered any on Vancouver Island. But, you know, when the time comes, there's the potential that, you know, there's going to be new fears. But, you know, you plan in advance. It's like, well, how can you avoid encounters with bears? Well, certainly don't land on a beach where you see them. And and certainly don't leave a messy camp. And I'm thinking, in this regard, I'm glad that I'm a vegan kayaker, because my kayak is plant powered.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I can't imagine that, you know, my leafy forage salad, because that's a new challenge I've given myself too, is to learn how to forage in the wilderness so that I can supplement my food with fresh greens and stuff like that. I'm thinking, you know, the food's out there for the bear to find himself as well, or herself, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
hopefully I will have amazing encounters where I can see them from a respectful distance, and awe and wonder of these incredible creatures, and not have to truly, you know, fear an attack or anything like that. And the thing is, I don't sit there thinking about the thought, oh, what if a bear comes to attack me? Because when you start thinking like that, that's what you're going to attract into your reality.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, oh, what a beautiful campsite. Oh, look at the beautiful sunset. It's like, and I'm not thinking, and is a bear coming to get me? I
Yeah.
simply won't put that into my reality. Yeah.
Very good. I
Yeah.
like that. So
Yeah.
basically, think what you want in your reality, and it's more likely that's what will come into your reality. But if you focus on the negativity, you kind of like guaranteed you're going to bring that into your reality. So, no, very good.
Yeah.
So you're a person who obviously enjoys adventure, nature, and the outdoors. what would you say to others why they need to, spend more time outdoors, spend time reconnecting with nature, and having a little bit more adventure in their life?
Well, we are nature. We are part of nature. And so, there's what I believe to be nature deficit disorder, where a lot of people spend a lot of their time or most of their time in big cities, disconnected from the healing power of nature. People need to get into nature, and especially now during these unprecedented times, because nature is the source of well-being and vitality. We need to get sunshine on our skin and into our eyes. We need to walk barefoot on the earth and get the electrical healing power from grounding and earthing. We need to get like the quality of healing by being surrounded by trees and animals. And we are, what is it, 75% water, and we need to be near water, and we need to drink clean water, not water with chloride and chlorine and fluoride in it. We need to boost our immunity. And it's well known that by being in nature, we boost our immunity, we boost our mood, and this is all enhancing our vitality. And that's what we need to do right now. We need to enhance our well-being and vitality, which is achieved through being in nature, as opposed to living in fear, as opposed to being dependent upon medication from the pharmaceutical companies and so forth. I mean, I don't take any pharmaceuticals. I live a natural life, and we are self-healing, and that's accomplished through our connection with the divine and our connection with nature. Everything we need for vitality comes from nature. And so we need to strongly connect to that, because that's where our life force originates from. And when people make that connection, I mean, I can't think of anyone who doesn't like to be in nature. And I know that some people might be scared to be in nature alone. Well, then don't go in nature alone. Go with someone that brings you comfort. Go with a partner, go with some friends.
Yeah.
But for me, it actually brings me great comfort, and I feel very nourished being in nature alone, and feeling just enveloped by all the beauty and all the, it's astounding, because there's so much diversity. And, if we can live our lives in wonder and reverence and awe, this is the state that we're meant to be in. Because when you look at like a toddler and they look at the world, they look at it like that. And I feel grateful that I've never lost that sense of wonder. I've never lost that sense of, what a wonderful world we live in.
Yeah, no, brilliant. So adventure would be the adjunct to that, isn't it? So because you're going out and into nature.
So adventure, I was thinking about, how would I define adventure? And adventure for me is having an experience that creates an expansive feeling, and having an experience where you go into the unknown. And that could very well be a familiar place or an unfamiliar place. So like even where I live, I'm experiencing it from a new perspective, because now I've added the perspective of, well, what plants that I'm, stepping on here, what plants are actually edible? So that's part of an adventure too. An adventure doesn't have to be summiting, the highest mountain on a certain continent. An adventure can be as big or small as you want it to be, but it's experiential. It's, you're experiencing new places, you're experiencing new people, you're experiencing new experiences and new lessons. And it's about being open to receiving that, because the more open-hearted we are, the more loving we are, and the more we get to truly invite into our hearts and souls, so that life feels more fulfilling. And so it's simply indescribable. Like, I'm trying to describe what it feels like to be adventuresome, but to me, when I am adventuring, it's like I feel very present. I feel very grateful. nothing else matters. I'm not, worried about anything. I am focused on the here and the now. And my heart feels full. My heart feels full when I'm adventuring. And it could be, I love self-propelled adventure, like in a kayak or backpacking, but that's not to say that I don't like a road trip. It's still an adventure, right?
Yeah.
And you experience it in a different way. And so adventure is basically a life unleashed. It's like living a life that's authentic, that resonates, and that brings you feel enlivened. It's exciting.
Yeah.
And I think we all need to have a bit more excitement in our life because, when you think about life, the mundane, the routine doesn't really stand out. It's the moments of where you felt enlivened. When I was sitting beside a family of whales and I watched the humpback whales exhale, their exhalations came out in the shape of a heart. And it's like, these are the moments that, I'll never forget. And it was because I chose to get out there. I chose to be in nature and I chose to live adventurously. And ironically, according to the name book that my mother used to name me, Wendy actually means adventuresome.
Okay. So your mother already had an idea what was coming. So
No idea. I've lived up to the name.
You definitely have. So
Yeah.
and you still have a lot more adventures ahead. So that's all very exciting. So, as you said, you're in your 60s now. I'm in my 50s. So we have a bunch of 40-year-olds or people approaching 40, and then they may be approaching it negatively or with some anxiety. What would you say to those guys?
Everything happens for a reason. And so, like even in my personal life, like, relationship, if there's rejection, it's actually not rejection. It's redirection. We're being redirected to something that's going to be even better than we could have possibly imagined. Like, before I started my kayaking life, I had never imagined how fulfilling and how enlivening my life would become by simply getting into a kayak and having the courage to go do this and to go camp in, the most incredibly beautiful places that most people will never get to see because they, have decided they're just too uncomfortable stepping outside of their comfort zone. Nothing will change if you don't step outside of your comfort zone. If something doesn't resonate with you, if you don't like your job, if you don't like your relationship, change it because nothing will change. And that takes courage. But, I realized if I had the courage to paddle around Newfoundland, I had the courage then to walk away from a marriage where divorce had been threatened because I simply wanted to paddle around Newfoundland. But I don't know if I would have had that courage. I gained that courage by living, dare I say it, I wanted to live like a fearless goddess of life. And you know what? When you see yourself like that, it changes things, right? Absolutely.
No,
Yeah.
definitely. So
Yeah.
I think there's probably a whole lot of people out there who would like to live a fearless goddess of life or a fearless warrior of life. Say you're a guy. I mean, most people would
Yeah.
be too scared to say that, but most people would actually want to live that. Not too worried about what the boss is going to say, what the wife's going to say, what the husband's going to say, what my parents going to say. Everyone's worried, but they really would like to be not worry about that and just be themselves and then live the kind of life they want to live and not have to worry about that. I mean, I think everyone wants to be, as you said, a fearless goddess of life or, male equivalent.
Well, I think it's a huge step in life when you come to the realization that you don't need other people's approval. You need to live a life where you approve of the decisions that you're making and you take full responsibility for every aspect of your life. And I think when you are doing what you love and you're loving what you do, you are in the flow. And when you're in the things come to you. I've had so many serendipitous moments, like, people that would invite me into their home simply because I was there. And before I knew it, I was, on doing an interview with BBC and things like that. Things come to you. Also, when I completed my Newfoundland kayak journey, and I was the first woman on the planet to have paddled solo around Newfoundland, which was a 68 kayaking day adventure, but it took 104 days to accomplish. And when I was in Nova Scotia celebrating with a kayaking club, one of the people there was the Maritimes representative for the brand of kayak that I paddled, which was Current Designs. And he basically said, check your email on your way home. And so when I did, I found out that the company wanted to sponsor me. And so things came to me because I was living an authentic life. I was doing what I loved, and the universe will support you, but you have to, you have to believe that you can do what you want to do. And the question of how can I do this will eventually reveal itself to you. There's always a will if there's always a way if there's a will.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
And the thing is, this is one of the biggest lessons that anyone can learn, is that there's no such thing as excuses, only priorities. What do you want to prioritize with your life? What's important? Because it's easy to always come up with an excuse, and then at the end of your life, you can say, well, I lived a life now with regret because I actually was too scared to move forward and do what I wanted to do. Or you can, at the end of your life, look back and say, I had fun. That was a good life.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think that's the end goal, isn't it? So we want to look back and, not have any kind of regrets. So
exactly. Yeah.
So this is a good lead into, what's your definition of living a legendary life or your best life?
I guess living a legendary life or best life is a life that you define for yourself. It's a life where you feel like you're thriving. It's a life where you feel alive and you feel connected. It's a life where you feel true passion about what you're doing. You feel good to wake up every morning. You love your life, and it doesn't have to be defined by what society has dictated is a legendary life. So it doesn't have to be a life of materialism. I basically, in 2012, I ended my teaching career early, and I basically dispersed almost all my possessions. And I live feeling lighter. I live feeling buoyant. I don't feel the need to be part of consumerism anymore. I simply attract into my life the things that bring value to my life. So, I love photography. So of course, I have no qualms if, for consumerism, I need to buy a camera. Yeah, well, it's part of the way I love to express my creativity. And so a life unleashed means you're not holding back. No matter what you feel, is a barrier to this. Our life is to overcome the barriers. And one of the barriers is to overcome the barrier to love. Because once you know how to open your heart to love, it just seems the world is like this incredible place. It's like, it opens up to a life where that's where all the force, like life force is in the power of love. Yeah. And love can be expressed in many ways. I love nature. I love myself. I love others. I love the divine. I love beauty. And so we can't, pigeonhole having love defined as just a romantic love.
Yeah.
Love is so much more. Love is a life force that makes me feel like this is a legendary life.
Yeah. No, great.
Yeah. I find it everywhere. Like, I basically feel like I'm always following a trail of heartstones, and it sounds ridiculous, but that's the universe reminding me I am loved.
Yeah. No, great stuff.
Yeah.
So I believe you mentioned earlier you have a particular mantra or motto, a life motto you like to say to yourself. So perhaps you can remind the people listening in what that mantra is.
Well, I have two that I definitely like to say. I like to say, the journey of life is a heartfelt adventure. And I also like to say the world is my playground, but I'm hopeful that someday I can say the world is our playground and have someone who wants to share in a life of adventure with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
those are two great, because, and I think play is important. I mean,
Yep.
even playing, you're adventuring and so forth, because play is just a buoyant way of being, right? Like life doesn't have to be serious. And even when you're on the water, like being on the water can be an experience that's of polar opposites, like on a very calm, placid ocean where it's filled with reflection, or on a lively, chaotic ocean where it's like you're sensing that you have to be very wary of every movement that you're making now. I mean, everything, there's just so much potential in every moment.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So to close out, what are 3 life lessons you've learned in life that you think would be of value to others?
Well, that's a good question. I say right now, we need to definitely live in the present moment. We need to be grateful for everything that is in our lives right now, because if we can see the gratitude for what's in life right now, an attitude of gratitude just expands reasons for having gratitude. And I guess I would also say, live the life you love the life you live, because basically, this is our life. This is our moment. And I certainly, at this point in my life, do not want to live with regrets anymore. I certainly don't want to, live a life where I'm not feeling this is deeply resonating. So we have to be very conscious of the choices that we're making so that we can feel that our life is moving in the direction that we're that we want it to. And then I think the final thing is, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. So live with courage. Do the things that might frighten you, because the magic actually is just on the other side of fear. And that's where you're going to find these incredible moments where you think, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, right? But you had to get there by going through your fear. So live fearlessly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, very, very valid lessons, and I'm sure a lot of people get value out of them. So to close out, how can people find you online? So I'm sure there are a bunch of people now who are quite inspired, would like to learn a little bit more about you, find out about your next adventures. So where can they find you online?
I only have one platform for social media right now. And so I am on Instagram, and I'm all lowercase, one word, Kayak Wendy, KAYAKWENDY. And I love sharing my experiences of adventure there and just my philosophies in life. And hopefully people will visit that page and find inspiration, because I love sharing my life with people, so that hopefully inspire people to live a life that resonates deeply in their hearts.
Awesome. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Len. Thank you again, Wendy. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Damien, for doing this interview with me. I greatly appreciate it, and have a wonderful day. So thank you kindly.